Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. Today we are taking a look at a knife from Terrain 365, which I've been interested in for a while. This is their Invictus model. This is the Invictus Compact. There is an Invictus full size, which, as you can guess, I would be more interested in. This is not my knife. It's on loan from a great guy named Trevor. I don't have permission to share his full name, so I'll leave that out. But I do want to extend a huge thank you to Trevor for sending this along, as well as another knife that you'll see in the next day or so. Both of these videos should be posting sometime together. And this is a really, as I said, I've been interested in Terrain 365 for a while. They sort of their claim to fame is making knives that have no ferrous metals, meaning they're not magnetic, they're not, and they can't rust, which is a big deal. For some of the things that we use our folding knives for, that rust issue becomes a problem. So whether it's, if you want to be swimming, diving, whatever, maybe it's just hiking or exercising where you're going to get this thing really sweaty and wet. Again, doesn't matter. This cannot rust, which is really cool. This is a Prometheus Design Works design, as of course is the larger version. And so the compact is, again, it's not something that I'd be super interested in other than to check it out and share it with you guys. And I'm really excited to do that because there's a lot of coolness here. And, as I say, I've been following the company for a long time. So let's give a quick rundown on size and weight. It does say compact, and that's true. So 7 1/8 inches long with a 3-inch blade, 4 1/8 inches closed. The grip area is also a little compact. It's 3 3/8 inches, and you can see I can't quite, it's I can get that fourth finger on there, but it's not like I have lots and lots of room. All right, so it works, but it's just a little small, which is one of the reasons I tend to avoid smaller knives. It's just that I can't get a full hold of it. Also, I like those larger blades as well. Anyway, in terms of weight, we're at 3.6 ounces, which is not that bad. There's not weight saving. They have milled out internally, but it has a full backspacer, and you can see it's fairly substantial in terms of materials. So based on that, the size is not, the weight, I'm sorry, is not out of line. And, 3.6 ounces is nothing. So I'm not the least bit concerned about carrying this. Now, the big story here is, of course, the blade. We've got this blade with a blasted finish, sort of a spear point going on, a nice fuller, a bit of a swedge at the top. Fairly low grind. Okay, I'm not in love with that. But before we get to the performance and that kind of stuff, I guess I'll quickly give you a look there. You can see Terravantium USA on that side, and you can see the Terrain 365 logo on the other side. So Terravantium, that brings us to, I guess, the big story, and that is the name of the blade material. Yes, Terravantium. And before you ask, you're right, that is what Captain America's shield is made out of. Now, what is Terravantium? It's a proprietary name for a dendritic cobalt. So that's the material, and I'll bet you didn't know that Oblivion took place in the Marvel universe. Okay, so if you know what I'm talking about there, let me know down in the comments, and I know the word is not exactly the same. But cobalt is a really cool material. It rarely occurs in nature in its pure form. In fact, the only place you find pure cobalt is in meteor strikes. So yeah, this blade is made from space metal, which is kind of cool. Terrain 365 doesn't disclose their recipe. All right, but what this blade would actually be would be like a cobalt alloy, and we don't know how they make the alloy. That's their business, and they keep it to themselves, which is totally fine. I will say the edge retention is good. Not only, I didn't wear this knife out because it's not mine, but I did purposely go out of my way to kind of travel around the internet forums and see if people are complaining about edge retention on the Terrain 365 knives, and they absolutely are not. Everyone is quite happy with edge retention, which is pretty cool. So The material is pretty, space age, spectacular kind of stuff, and that I think ramps the cool factor up a long, long way. The only, well, I like the material and I find that part really cool. I do wish this blade was designed to slice just a little bit better. So, let's move this grind up a little higher, and either, you could even make it a hollow grind. It's pretty thin behind the edge, so it's not the worst thing ever, but especially on a smaller knife, I feel like it doesn't need to be this tank of a knife, because it's already kind of small. So, thin things out a little bit and make this slice a little better. Or better yet, as I always say, go with a hollow grind, which is always going to cut better. It's the best way to get a thick, heavy duty, tough blade that still cuts like crazy. All right, so that's the blade discussion for you. What about the action on this knife? Well, obviously, as you can see, as you're looking at it here, we've got a titanium frame lock. It is on ceramic bearings, thumb stud deployment, which works pretty well. You can see even left-handed, I can somehow pull it off. Right-handed, there you go. You want to keep your fingers off the lock bar, but even with them on, it's not that bad, other than you'll get a really stiff deployment. Now, there is one problem, and you're already seeing it. This can have a little bit of lock stick, which is not ideal, but it's not the worst lock stick I've ever seen. And I suspect over time, as I say, I babied this knife a little because it's not mine. Over time, as Trevor uses this for the next, months, years, whatever, that will probably go away. Just keep in mind, by the way, you can't just drop a hardened steel lock bar insert in there, because now you're wrecking the whole no ferrous metal stuff. All right. And so it kind of is what it is. It's not bad lock stick. It's just it's noticeable for sure, and it's a little uncomfortable. If you really flip it out hard, it'll stick a little worse, and that's not ideal, but it's also not the end of the world. The handle is nicely contoured and does feel comfortable in hand. And I have to say, I'm always a little bit surprised when small knives are comfortable, because that's not usually my experience. Often I feel cramped and like, man, I wouldn't want to have to do anything serious with this knife. And that's why I don't usually carry them. The clip doesn't create any hot spots. It's really nicely done. So just a very plain milled titanium clip here. Doesn't create any hot spots, even though it's almost half the length of the handle. That's pretty impressive. And frankly, overall, this knife is pretty impressive. The milling is nice. The contouring is nice. The finishing, the fit and finish is nearly perfect. So there's a lot there's a lot going on here that is really, really well done. Now, I will say this, I don't have a lot of what I would call appropriate comparisons. First of all, I guess, you'd probably have to look at the Spyderco Salt series. That's where you'd kind of see the most sort of similar features to this. The knife that I have that is, I guess puts me a little bit in mind of this in terms of being smaller, around the same price point, very high end, would be the Wii Mini Buster. But again, it's a cool design, and of course highly desirable because of the collaboration with Snex. However, it doesn't get all of the cool points that the Terrain 365 gets, for sure. All right. Fairly expensive knife. I think these go for like $380, which is not cheap, but given what I've told you about the construction and the materials, I think that is sort of expected. Oh, also before we move totally away from this knife, I forgot to say the thumb studs are quite comfortable. There's this little sort of plastic cap on here that works really well and makes the thumb studs quite comfortable and easy to use. Overall, guys, really, really impressive knife. Spending time with it has only made me want a full size even more. I would wish for a slightly higher grind or a hollow grind, or better yet, both. But I'd also like to see no lock stick, but that lock stick is likely going to go away, and there are other ways that we can deal with that. All right, so the big deal here is, of course, the Didratic Cobalt blade, which is absolutely cool. The inability to rust, which again is absolutely cool. And of course, this is a very well put together, high-end premium frame lock, which is that last element there. So great knife, highly recommended if you can get your hands on one. The bigger ones are not available, and these tend to be knives that they do a run and they pop up and they're available for a month or so, and then they're gone for quite a long time while another run comes. And so if you want one of these, you're going to have to get your hands on one pretty quickly. If you want the full size, again, you're going to be waiting like I am, and I've been waiting for a long time, so I've seen this cycle sort of happen a number of times. And you know, when they drop, I don't always have just 400, $500 just to drop, just to spend on the at the spur of the moment. So I don't have one either. There you go. Great knife. Definitely a knife that I want. Definitely a knife that has a lot of cool features, and one that I've enjoyed getting to spend time with. So thanks again to Trevor for letting me check this out. We'll talk to you guys soon. Oh, by the way, check out the channel sponsor. That does help me out a whole lot. Now, this time we'll finally say goodbye. Talk to you soon.